The 2025 college football season has a different feel this year, especially at the quarterback position. All across the SEC and Big Ten, Chris, there's a noticeable wave of young and these relatively inexperienced quarterbacks taking over for these major programs. Bryce Underwood, he's expected to start day one at Michigan. Austin Simmons is taking over at Ole Miss. Lenora Sellers, of course, returns to South Carolina after his first season as the starter. And even the transfer Julian Sayin from Alabama, that freshman transfer, he's stepping into that first full-time starting role. It's part of this broader shift that we're seeing in this NIL era. Schools are more willing to put their top talent on the field right away. And while fast-tracking young quarterbacks is becoming more common, we got some guys like a Keon Russell at Bama who are still taking that long road. They're learning behind the scenes, and both paths matter, right? Not every sword is forged overnight. So welcome into the Devy Dojo, everyone, where we sharpen our minds and we scout the future. I'm the Sensei, he's the Shifu, and tonight we're diving into the quarterbacks you need to know heading into the 2025 season. Chris, how you doing tonight, man?
Absolutely, man. This has been the most fun I've had preparing for one of our episodes so far because, it's the quarterback. It's the magic. It's the cog that turns all other cogs, the driver of the boat here. So captain of the boat. So I'm looking forward to discussing the guys that we have lined up for you today. And I also think this might be our most diverse as far as the difference between me and you on our tiers so far. So looking forward to digging into this with you.
Absolutely, man. Me too. And our tiers kind of have been a little similar lately. So I am interested. Haven't seen your tiers, man. I'm anxious to see them.
I was keeping them a secret for you this time. So
I
got some things in store.
I was trying to peep at them a little bit, but Chris was guarding them pretty heavy. With that being said, everybody, we got a lot to cover tonight. So I do want to get into it. We're going to be talking about the most important position, quarterbacks, tonight. So let's enter the dojo. Quarterbacks are like water. They can be powerful rivers running through your Devy roster, yet their value can be unpredictable, surging like a tsunami or drying up into a puddle. This fluid nature makes them both thrilling and frustrating to roster.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I love the quarterback position, as you can expect. We all do, but there's only so many of them that make it to the NFL as a starter, and a lot of these guys we're talking about today are never going to get there. And as excited as we may be about them, there's only a few games this year that they're going to have a chance to separate themselves from the rest of the pack and, make their stage debut on the NFL draft.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much to unpack there. I love these scrolls, man, because I could just sit there and truly look at it and peel something back and learn something new every time. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I got from this is that this scroll specifically reminds us that the quarterback position it's constantly shifting in Devy, right? It's a very volatile position. You could be at the highest of the highs and then at the lowest of lows. I mean, I think we're going to talk about a couple of guys that have already experienced that a little bit. But what we do know, Chris, is that traits matter, right? Timing matters, but so does the perception. Because some quarterbacks, like I alluded to, they're going to raise in that value before they've even taken a meaningful snap. While others prove it on the field, some still get overlooked. So that's why tonight we're not just ranking these quarterbacks, right? We're placing them into our Devy Dojo colored belt tiering system, balancing projection, traits, production, and that perceived artificial value. We go from future black belts to raw, intriguing white belts. These are the quarterbacks that today are shaping the next chapter of the Devy landscape.
Yeah, and water is the perfect analogy too, because I have a upcoming beach vacation that has been on my mind, and the incoming and outgoing of the tide has just been the quiet hum in the back of my mind recently. But at the same time, you just had a basement flood, so much like holding on to those guys too long on your Devy rosters, they can really stink up the place at the bottom of your lineups there. So your rosters. So water is a great analogy for the quarterback position. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me about the basement flooding. That was twice in 1 week. Actually,
that's true. Sorry about that. Yeah.
But we're here. We're live. We're still recording in the basement. I got the little flag behind me now. No major damage, so we're all good here. We're all good, man. But let's get rolling into the belt color tiers.
Absolutely. So what we have is the breakdown of our color tiers as usual. Very similar, in the theme. But if you want to read through these and break them down for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start there at the black belt. Of course, that is the highest and most prestigious belt that a quarterback prospect can attain. And this is the rare quarterback prospect with elite traits, including arm talent, mobility, and flashes of advanced processing, paired with either early production or a clear projection to round one NFL draft capital. These players have franchise quarterback upside, even if still developing consistency. They represent the pinnacle of Devy value. Then you move over there to the purple belt. That is the toolsy and productive quarterbacks with rising Devy value and visible NFL starter traits. They've shown flashes, whether in arm strength, mobility, or decision making, but they remain a step away from elite due to inconsistency, limited production, or incomplete polish. Purple belts are high upside prospects with legitimate paths to round one or round two capital. And we move over to the blue belt. We got quarterbacks with strong physical tools or pedigrees who've gotten onto the field and flashed, but they still struggle with consistency. They still struggle with processing, or they still struggle with decision making. But they show promise, and their Devy value lags behind other tiers due to question marks in either their polish or scheme reliance. Blue belts remain intriguing, but volatile. And the last two there, yellow belt, is promising quarterbacks with raw tools, mobility, or strong recruiting pedigree, but limited live reps or sustained production. This tier also includes quarterbacks who flashed at lower levels, like the group of five, and are now stepping up to power four play, but mostly still projection. However, their opportunity is beginning to materialize through development, transfer, or system fit. And lastly, we have our white belt, true freshmen or stash prospects who haven't taken a college snap. There may be strong arm traits or athletic upside, but no meaningful confirmation. These are Devy dart throws with long runway and uncertain outcomes.
Absolutely. Great tiers. Much like before, there's a little bit of nuance in them. And a quick reminder that just because you're on a tier doesn't necessarily mean that you're at the bottom of our top 10 of rankings and such. And like last week with the running backs, we are going to start with the white belt. And the reason that I preluded it with that was that Bryce Underwood is on both of our white tiers, and he is much higher for me on my actual top 10 rankings. I am absolutely excited about this kid. I just put a tweet out about him the other day with some highlights from his high school tape. He's somebody who I feel like is set up for a lot of success at Michigan. There's a reason he was the number one recruit in his cycle. Just go check out at Chris the Cardman and look at it's about 2.5 minutes of highlights I put up there. High school tape is extremely impressive. He can just launch the ball down the field pretty effortlessly. He displays a lot of touch and a lot of accuracy when he's doing so. He also has some shorter throws that are kind of like bullet passes mixed in there as well. So he did a lot of deep ball throwing in high school. And, those are going to be a little bit hit or miss at the collegiate level. So he's got a little bit to learn. He's a true freshman coming in playing in the Big Ten. But I'm confident in the Michigan coaching staff to try to help him develop in the right ways.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Sharon Moore develops him, man. I mean, it's rare, right, that we talk about true freshman quarterbacks that are able to come in and really be starters year one. But especially a program with as much history as Michigan, and who really, I think that they feel like they're on the verge of being a playoff program. So Underwood isn't your average freshman, right? Michigan's quarterback room, it's this blank canvas. And they're a team last year that our good friend Chev would say struggled with the forward pass. And I mean, that sounds like a joke, but they legitimately did. I believe their longest pass on the season last year was 42 yards. And that's with like 30 of that coming after the catch.
That's a good stat. I didn't know that. Even the year before, too, when they won the Natty, it wasn't like J.J. McCarthy was out there lighting up the place.
No.
They're not really known recently for their quarterback play.
No, they're not. When you think of Michigan, you don't think of the top tier elite quarterback play really ever. I mean, of course, you have Tom Brady who played there. I consider him an elite collegiate quarterback. However,
he was a 6th-round pick for a reason, right? So
exactly
lighting it up in Michigan.
Exactly. And we all know the pedigree that Bryce Underwood came with, a 5-star plus. Originally, obviously, throughout pretty much the entire recruiting process, all of us that were watching it, anxious to see where he went. he was verbally committed to LSU up until the end, man. Up until the billionaire, we know this story, the billionaire Larry Ellison and his wife, they reportedly offered him $10 to $12 million to flip from LSU to go to his hometown team, Michigan there. So just really interesting to see. This is an unprecedented event and era that we're in, to have a major athlete like that flip truly because of money. So I am anxious to see how he, not only how he develops, but how he plays year one, because something that it's kind of be a theme that I talk about tonight. These quarterbacks that come in with this level of expectation. I always get nervous when we have prospects enter with this level of expectation put on them at such young ages, because if they don't hit, then their value tanks, and then we know. But yeah,
absolutely. One of the things that I was reading about him, I love the intangibles. A lot of the people said he has great poise in the pocket, and off the field, he's a fantastic leader. Even already, he was hosting some of the recruits as the team host, or whatever you want to call it, there at Michigan, trying to get people to come join him on the roster. He's doing a lot of extra work. It seems like he's staying late and coming early to practice, getting some throws in. I read somewhere that he was practicing with receivers as late as midnight. So he's really doing his best to try to be the best overall player that he can be. And of course, we talked a little bit about his passing ability, but he's got that dual threat ability too. He's really fun to watch as a runner. He's got a lot of speed, of course. And I think that what shows out for me is that he can navigate the lanes really well. He avoids the tacklers like he's a seasoned pro already. It's going to be a little bit different again at the NCAA level, where there's much better talent coming at you than in high school. But I think he's got the moxie to be able to adapt and learn. There's some nice highlights of him doing some nice cuts. I saw one with him doing kind of like a slow down stutter step, where he would let the tackler miss him right in front of him and then juked him out and kept going and used that speed to make a really nice long rush for a touchdown. In general, I think this is a guy who's going to do the best by himself, for himself.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify him as like a run first guy, right? But when he does decide to take off, he does have that running back level type juice and acceleration. I think even looking at his profile there on 247, there's a quote on there where they called him a 3-level passer with that twitch and burst, the best deep ball thrower in the class with effortless velocity and mature mechanics. Those were all the words used to describe him. So, I mean, you have to be over the moon for this kid. He really seems put together. Like he's got a good head on his shoulders, right? We've talked about that. There was a video that Ben shared in our Discord about him getting money. I don't know if it was from NIL, but he put that money back in the community, and he actually bought one of the resource officers from his high school a new car and just blessed him with that. So it's really cool to see him doing stuff like that. You love to see that way, because of course the question always was in this NIL era was, what's going to happen if you give teenagers millions and millions of dollars? So it is refreshing to see a guy like Bryce Underwood doing good with the money and really making those mature decisions and really putting the money back into the community and investing in those people that helped propel him and get him to where he is today. But before we move on, I do want to zoom out a little bit, because we can hype this guy up all that we want, but at the end of the day, this is still a true freshman that we're talking about, and there's still a long road ahead for him. You could see the occasional lapses in footwork, the consistency on tape, especially when he's rolling left. That's the big knock on him, is that when he's rolling left, he has the lapse in his footwork, and it does impact his accuracy sometimes. Of course, there's always going to be things to work on. So I do just want to put that out there. Like, he doesn't have the best mechanics at times, but that's something that's always going to be developed with time and practice. Like, you just got to get experience to fix those things. So I'm not worried at all. I think he's going to smash. He's going to be
absolutely. Yeah. And lucky for him, it seems like he's coming in as the starter. So he's going to get the chance to start as a true freshman. So he's going to have a nice, road ahead of him to start learning early and start to see some of those good Big Ten defenses coming at him. And let's see how he can adapt this year. But the next guy we're going to talk about, Keon Russell, is a guy who I don't believe has the quarterback 1 position quite locked up yet. I'm sure we'll see some of him this year, but I don't know that we'll see him as a starter. They might be looking to make him a red shirt down there in Alabama. But he's another guy who was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school and has that dual threat ability and those beautiful deep passes. So why did he make your white tier list?
Well, let's put it this way. If Bryce Underwood is the headline of that recruiting class, then Keon Russell might be the bold subhead just underneath, right? He's equally as important, just not as loudly promoted. But both are still elite recruits. And for me personally, there wasn't a big gap between them for me as far as recruits. In fact, if there was no Bryce Underwood, Keon Russell would have been one of the highest that I've personally been able to scout coming out of high school. So over the moon for him to digging into his tape and production. I saw a kid who went 29-1 as a starter at Duncanville, which, if you know anything about that high school, Duncanville, very legendary high school. They've put a lot of players into the NFL. They have this legendary track team. Just they put out so many good athletes. He led one of the best programs in high school to back-to-back 6A state titles. He closed his senior season with a stat line that reads like a video game, straight up over 4,000 passing yards, 55 passing touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, nearly 10 yards per carry on the ground, literally video game number. The kind of production it doesn't just get you recruited, it gets you Gatorade National Player of the Year, like Keon Russell got. He was a Max Prep All-American. So, I mean, he did so many good things on the football field. And now, like you said, yeah, he's going to redshirt, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I like when these guys are able to sit and develop in kind of that old school approach. Right now at Bama, you got a guy in Ty Simpson who is a former 5-star himself and that people are probably sleeping on. So he gets to learn the Kalen DeBoer system, and he really he's this perfect mold of clay that you just get to form into what Kalen DeBoer really wants to see out of his quarterback. And we saw last year Kalen DeBoer with Jalen Milroe, and it just didn't work out. But now you get the guy 6'3", 182 pounds. So he's a little, he's got a slight frame, so he does need to add some functional strength and muscle and mass to his frame. But a lot of people are
still very young, though. He's got time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if he's not playing every week. He doesn't have to worry as much about reading the defensive playbook or the opponent. He can just work on hitting the gym.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to learn the playbook. I still have a lot of faith in Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. I think that they are tremendous play callers, designers of their offensive schemes and passing concepts. I'm a big fan of what they do. It's a big reason why I was in on Michael Penix too. So they get his guy, and I think it's going to be a good fit. So I'm anxious to see him. That's why I put him on this tier, even though he's not going to be starting now. This is Devy, right? We're still projecting long term. He's got all the traits that I look for. He checks every box. So, yeah, excited to really see this guy going forward.
He's going to be on a lot of Devy rosters already, too. He's a guy who's been picked up in almost every league. So somebody to look out for and somebody to be excited for, absolutely. Kind of on the opposite end of that, we have a guy who was at Alabama and then has now moved to Ohio State, and it's looking like he is going to be the starter at Ohio State, and that's Julian Sayin, the Super Saiyan. He made my list. I think he was pretty close on your tiers, but
yeah, he
didn't quite make your top 10. I really like him. I'm excited to see what he can do, even though it's for one of my rivals here at Ohio State. But he was a 5-star recruit coming out, and he ended up transferring out of Alabama whenever Nick Saban retired. And he knew he was going to sit a little bit at Ohio State, and got his championship ring there, I'm sure, for not doing too much but learning. And now this is his team to lead. He was rated the most accurate passer of his recruiting cycle. So he's a guy to get excited about. That's the reason that Nick Saban wanted him, of course. After transferring, he's had a chance to learn from some good coaches and see what it takes to be a champion. And now he's going to be hopefully, making them another playoff run. He was the Elite 11 MVP in high school. He had 7,970 yards, 86 passing touchdowns, and he did that with a 70.6 completion percentage. So absolutely accurate as he was regarded coming out. His senior year, he had over 75% accuracy, which is pretty phenomenal. He had 24 touchdowns, only 1 interception that year. So if he could have carried any of that talent over to Ohio State, he's got good things coming for him. He did get into a couple.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there. What's so exciting about him is the accuracy that you pointed to, and he's got the best offensive weapons in the world to throw to with the Ohio State just pipeline of 5-star receivers coming in, man. You don't have to. Will Howard showed last year that you don't have to be the best quarterback in the country to be productive and really get guys like Jeremiah Smith going. Just get him the football, right? Just get the ball to the good players on your team. So I think as long as he could be a good distributor of the ball and just play within the offense, I think they're going to be great. Now, the question, of course, with Ohio State is, what is their offense going to look like now without Chip Kelly calling the plays? I do think that they are going to be a little more pass heavy, obviously without Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson. They're going to, I think, down the stretch in the playoffs, you saw them go into more 3 wide receiver sets, spread the field, isolate Jeremiah Smith on the outside, get it to him, get it to Emeka Egbuka. Now you're going to have guys like Carnell Tate in the slot. You're going to have probably Mylan Graham, maybe Quincy Porter. Who knows who's going to win that position? Brandon Ennis. They got just a wagon full of 5 stars that they can choose
and
from.
a great wide receivers coach in Brian Hartline, who's now their
Yes.
offensive coordinator, which is why I think they are going to advance the ball much more through the air than they did last year. They were only 89th in the country in pass attempts per game last year. So I fully expect that to go up. These are all guys that you should be targeting on your C2C teams for sure. If you go back to our episode 1, there's a reason I'm super high on Carnell Tate. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith is the god, so it's going to be exciting to see what he can do with that accuracy, getting those guys the ball. As mentioned, he did get into a couple of games last year. There was a nice TD pass that he had where he kind of faked a run to the left and then quickly just found an open tight end down the field who took it real far. Nice quick release is what he's always touted for, aside from his accuracy, and that's pretty evident on that touchdown pass. So if you look at his limited highlights from last year, you can see why they're excited to have him moving forward. He is a little bit of a quieter guy, though. I kind of like the dog mentality a little bit. So I think that's one of those intangible knocks that I'll put on him, is that he doesn't seem like he's got quite the same level of pizzazz and moxie that some of these guys do. But I'm sure that that's going to come with time as he gets a little bit more comfortable in the offense. And I'm really excited because less than 2 months from today, as we record, is going to be the opening big noon Saturday against Arch Manning in Texas. So that's going to be a game to watch, and I will be firmly on my couch for that one.
Yeah. We should host something in the Discord for that. For
yeah,
sure.
We definitely should. We gotta
but moving on, I'm gonna go to my last guy in this tier, and he's actually the guy that I dropped Julian Sayin for. Now, not necessarily ranking him ahead of him, but I just wanted to talk about my guy. This is one of my guys, Austin Simmons, who I'm over the moon excited for, and not a lot of people are really talking about him and Devy. So I kind of want to call my shot here and talk about one of my guys. Now, to me, there aren't many quarterbacks in the country who are more intriguing than Austin Simmons, or even under the radar. And I'll be honest with you, Chris, tonight I'm planting my flag. This is one of my guys. Simmons.
Love that. You even said that on Twitter today. You planted your flag.
Did.
My guy,
I
quarterback.
Planted my flag. They asked for us to put a list of our guys based on positions. And at quarterback, one of my guys, like you said, was Austin Simmons. He's truly unique, Chris. He was homeschooled. He earned an associate's degree before he turned 17. Then he actually reclassified 2 years early, and he flipped from Florida to Ole Miss, and he entered as a 17-year-old academic junior. Right? He's a true junior academically entering school. So, but really to me on the tape, what really jumps out isn't his age or his story. It's his southpaw release, that lefty lucky stuff going on. So watching that left-handed quarterback with that kind of velocity it's really rare. And it gives his throws that natural shift and angle that defenses just aren't used to seeing. And Lane Kiffin clearly believes in this kid. Simmons, of course, we know he redshirted in 2023 as a 17-year-old kid, and he got spot starts in 2024. But his breakout moment came in relief against the University of Georgia in Athens, arguably the toughest place to start your career, I would say. He stepped in cold, Chris, and he immediately executed. I could not get over that. I watched this drive about 1 million times before this show. It was a tone-setting drive. He went 5 for 6 passing, 64 yards, and a touchdown. But he converted a clutch 3rd and 10. He had to start the drive. He had back-to-back 11-yard completions. Like I said, the clutch 3rd and 10 conversion. He threw a dime on 4th and 1 to gain 12 yards to just keep the drive moving. No hesitation, no free play. He was just precise, and it was just this confident quarterback play from a young kid stepping in against one of the best defenses in the country. And his head coach, Lane Kiffin, actually, he had a quote, and he said, "We didn't put him," meaning Austin Simmons, in there and say, okay, let's just hand the ball off and punt. We called the game as if he were the starter. He continued on with the quote and said, he didn't flinch. Austin Simmons came in and the offense didn't skip a beat. That's a trust you don't earn with just arm talent. That's command. And as As for the arm, recruiting services saw the same upside, right? Looking at On3, they called him blindingly bright with a snappy left arm and compared his release speed to Tua Tagovailoa. The quarterback coach, Oliver Bozeman, even tweaked his delivery from baseball to cricket-style efficiency. So when you look at it, it's like a snappy little – it's really cool. I'll have to send you a clip, but it's a tight release.
Always fun to watch those left-handers. Absolutely. And I know that he's got big shoes to fill down there in Old Mix with Jackson Dart being in the NFL now. But I saw a clip of Greg McElroy talking about him really excitedly earlier this spring. So he's a guy to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's mechanically he's compact. He's got the pitcher's fluidity because I didn't even mention this. He's a pitcher on the baseball team. So he has the base. Yeah, so he has the baseball background. I saw he can throw a fastball up to 96 miles per hour. He was a relief pitcher, so got the baseball experience, which I always like quarterbacks with the baseball background, of course. But he actually this season he is no longer going to play baseball. He's focusing all in on football. So
that's what we want.
Love to see that. Yeah, love to see that. And of course, if you're playing in any type of C2C league, you need to have Austin Simmons on your team because Lane Kiffin offense will put up points. So just excited to see him, man, with the opportunity that he's going to get. He has a lot of good. Yeah, he has some wide receivers out there that I like too. Yeah. So
absolutely. I already put on our yellow tier here. We have one guy who I feel like exemplifies the yellow tier the most, which is John Mateer, because he was coming from Washington State and is now at Oklahoma. He is a guy who the more I watch, the more excited I got for him. He can just throw from all type of angles. He's got that crazy arm mechanics. And, no matter who's in front of him, how big the guy is in front of him, he can find a way to get the ball out from around him. He can throw it all over the field, too. I saw somebody online compare him to a point guard, the way he passes the ball. And I feel like that's really accurate because he can run out of the pocket, find a hole, buy himself some time, and get it down to his receivers. It seems like he always knows where they're at, too. So he's a guy I'm excited about seeing how he can do in the SEC. Why is he on your yellow tier?
A lot of the same reasons, man. So following his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, from Washington State to Oklahoma, like I get juiced up about guys like that are he's got experience in the system, right? We already know that he's productive. He's a scrambler straight up too. He had over 1,000 yards rushing when you take away the sacks because NCAA is dumb and they count that as negative rushing yards for them.
Right.
Take that away,
you told me, and I was like, over 1,000. That's crazy when you remove the sacks.
Yeah, he had over 1,000 rushing yards. He had 55
missed tackles. 53 is what I saw, but 55.
Yeah.
Missed tackles for.
Yeah, so we're talking about the same thing. I read my notes wrong. It is 53 missed tackles. Ripped off 38 runs of 10-plus yards last year. PFF gave him a 91.3 elusiveness rating. So that's elite for quarterback play. And I think he could probably run about a 4.4 legitimately. So very athletic. The off-platform throws, as you mentioned, are just something that just gets you real excited. He had a play that I was watching on tape where it was a boot. It was a play-action boot rolling to his left. And as he's rolling to the left, he has a defender bearing down on him. He flips his hips, throws it kind of the sidearm delivery that kind of looks like vintage Matthew Stafford, just throwing it sidearm. On a rope across the sidelines, you have the wide receiver had the defender beat, and he had the safety bearing down. He fit the ball right in between them for a touchdown. It was just a beautiful throw that really showed like Mateer at his best. However, you got to talk about some of the bad stuff too with these guys. And what has me pause with him is not just coming from lower level competition. Of course, that's going to be something that we have to see is how does the production translate to now the SEC. But the other thing is just the delivery and release itself. He can at times throw from all different angles, but when he throws from his base, it's this real windy kind of delivery. And it does, from what I've seen, it impacts his accuracy on the short and intermediate stuff. So as long as he's able to clean that up, he should be good. But it's something I think the NFL is going to look at, and he's going to have to refine that if he truly wants to elevate his draft capital, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get guys to talk about on these tiers and, cutting my down to my 10. He was a guy who I thought about maybe leaving off because, to throw a little bit of cold water on the conversation, against Power 4 schools and Boise State last year, he was pretty mid. He was only thrown 4 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He had pretty mid-level PFF passing grades. I think, though, that he has a chance to adapt. As you mentioned, Ben Arbuckle, his offensive coordinator, has moved to Oklahoma with him, so he knows the system, so he doesn't have to relearn anything. He's going to keep growing down there. And he has the right mindset. He was just at the Manning Passing Academy talking about how, when he was young, he always thought those guys were superheroes, and now he feels like he belongs there with all the rest of them. So he's got the right mindset, and he's ready to ball, and he's definitely a baller. It's fun to watch him play. Moving over to me.
A baller.
Yeah, we got Dante Moore on my tier, and I know that you have talked about Dante on several podcasts now. He's one of the guys that you're pretty into, and I had said that I would throw him on my tier so we could get some conversation going about him. He is a former 5-star recruit and All-America Bowl MVP, and he made 5 starts as a true freshman at UCLA. So doesn't necessarily fit the yellow tier for that reason, just because he already did have some decent competition playing against him as recently as 2 years ago. However, I will say the more that I read about this guy, there's a lot of people hyping him up, and I am going to put my flag down as a fade on Dante Moore. I wanted to get him on here to talk to you about him because I know you like him. But the more that I looked into him, the analytics do not love him, man. I'm not as gassed up. People are talking about maybe next Heisman candidate. 2 years in a row they've had a Heisman candidate at Oregon. At quarterback, I just don't see it, man. He only had 53.5% of his passes complete in his 5-game stint at UCLA, 11-9 touchdown to interception ratio. Not really a big rushing threat, so you can't really fall back on that. I don't necessarily want to dog him a whole lot for being a true freshman in a Chip Kelly offense, because Chip Kelly's kind of weird. Anybody who's ever watched any of his teams, they do some weird stuff sometimes. So I don't want to dog him too much. However, that same year after he got benched, Ethan Garbers had much more improvement than Dante Moore had success during that year. And that's as the competition got even more tough. So Ethan Garbers had 67% completion that year and an 11-3 touchdown interception ratio. Naturally, he hasn't seen the field. Everybody's excited about him learning behind Dylan Gabriel last year. But as mentioned, I wanted to put him on the list, and then I told you pre-show that I was going to give you a little surprise, and that's my surprise. I put a nice big red X over him on our tiers here.
Man, typical Chris. Put him up here just to talk trash, right? Yeah, I love it. Dante Moore is a guy I wouldn't say Heisman candidate. I mean, maybe if he has like a really, really good productive season, maybe he'd be a finalist, but I don't see him realistically winning it. But he is somebody that I'm excited about. He's somebody that I was really into as a prospect. In fact, he was heralded coming out of high school as one of the tailor-made, ready-to-start prospects that you could get out there. And in fact, I don't know if you knew this, Chris, he was originally committed to Oregon. That's where he was originally going to go play. And then they heard Bo Nix was coming back for another year. He's like, nah, I don't want to sit. I want to play now. He was very adamant about wanting to play. So he, of course, went to the Pac-12, played in the Chip Kelly system at UCLA. And look, it just didn't go right. He could not handle the blitz. Anytime there was a blitz coming his way, he could not identify it post-snap. They ran some pretty exotic-looking blitzes for a collegiate Pac-12 defensive system that he was going against. And he really struggled. I believe he had 3 straight games of throwing a pick 6. And you could just see his confidence was just ruined. Now, you got a young kid. If you keep him out there, they're going to get gun-shy. They develop bad habits in the pocket, which that was already happening. His confidence was ruined. He had to go back on the bench and sit and just reestablish himself, get back and find out who he is, and really just mold his game in a different way. So when I look at a guy like Dante Moore, I just see your typical human. Now, I don't know about you, Chris, but I've been through some things in life, and I haven't always made the best choices, or life hasn't always been easy for me. And a lot of times it was my lowest points that propelled me to get to the point that I am today. And I think that's what you're going to see here with Dante Moore this year.
He's definitely making the right moves, to say, I'm going to transfer, I'm going to sit, I'm going to learn, I'm going to try to recoup some of my value and make myself a better guy. It seems like he's got the right mindset, but ultimately, the more I dug into it, the more I was like, I'm comfortable leaving him off my top 10. If we're talking about top 10, let somebody else take that hit on your Devy rosters and be willing to be wrong.
I agree with you there. As you can see, he is not on this tier, and spoiler alert, he's not on any of the other belt tiers for me. He was just outside for me. So I get it. He's a guy that I'm cautiously optimistic about, but I'm not going around parading him as the next Heisman candidate. I think that's a lot of hopium right now, probably coming from the Ducks.
Again, I'm hoping
he
he's
just
listening so that he gets an extra chip on his shoulder. Maybe he'll shout me out when he's winning a Heisman and say that Chris the Card Man, he's the guy that did it.
Card man. Hey, then you get a little kickback or something, right? You got to get
right.
something.
Yeah, he can bring me on stage. I'll be there. Call me up, Dante.
So,
all right, blue tier. Moving on. We are divided amongst our blue tiers.
Ooh.
You have Nussmeier and Leavitt. I have Nico and Raiola here. So let's dive into Garrett because he's a hot name right now. He's a guy who I have a little bit higher than you do. And I want to see why you felt like he was a blue tier guy.
Oh, man. I feel like I've been defending Nussmeier a lot lately. There's a lot of hate about Garrett Nussmeier out there. And
the gumbo
last
gunslinger.
Year, the gumbo gunslinger, baby. Come on. We're getting that out there. We're going to make that a thing. I saw that from JD Piquel from On3, but we're helping him make that a thing.
Absolutely.
But the gumbo gunslinger, Garrett Nussmeier, he didn't just step into the spotlight last year at LSU. I think he launched himself in it after years of waiting in the wings behind other quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels. He made the most out of that long wait by throwing for over 4,000 yards as a true, not as a true freshman, excuse me, as a first-year starter. That's actually good for 10th best in LSU history. I don't know if you knew that. Being a first-year starter is still hard, especially in the SEC, and people just gloss over the fact that he still threw for over 4,000 yards. I think he showcased a brand of being fearless, this high-octane football that's just become increasingly rare. And I saw it right away on the tape, Chris. The arm talent to me, it's real. I think he's got this natural velocity that pops on the screen when he's driving the ball into tight windows with conviction. Whether it was against Alabama where he's firing a deep corner against them or layering touch throws against defenders versus Ole Miss, the ball just seems to explode off of his hands with the flick. Now, Nuss isn't he's what I'd call a timing-based gunslinger, meaning he doesn't hesitate, right? When he sees it, he rips it and he lets it go. And oftentimes he's actually let me back up here. When I grade quarterbacks and I see that all 22, when I'm looking at their back end and seeing where their heads are moving, I'm looking to see if they're throwing with anticipation, if they're throwing to the wide receiver before they made their break at the top of their route. And that's something that he actually did a lot. Sometimes, though, it was a fault because he would just throw it in the tight windows thinking that he could squeeze it in there. And, of course, he made some boneheaded interceptions, of course. So that's why, for me, the play style for Garrett Nussmeier, I comp him to early career Tony Romo, right? He's not this rushing quarterback by stat line, but his mobility inside the pocket kind of reminds me of Romo. And I think it's one of the most underrated aspects of his game. He kind of can slither around, get through defenders, reset his base and his platform, and he can deliver darts with defenders right in his face. Got a little bit of that Tony Romo gunslinger attitude. I
do really like that comp. That's a good one for him. And the big thing, of course, is his arm talent. As you mentioned, he's a bit of a rushing threat, more than you might think by looking at him. But he's more of a slippery guy than a real threat to take off and book it. But I actually have him higher because I think he's one of the guys who is most likely to elevate his game and really become a contender for number 1 overall pick next year in the draft. He's just got great highlight throws, man. It seems like he can put the ball anywhere, in any window, lead any receiver, get it behind the receiver if he feels like he needs to for the receiver to make a catch. I just love his arm talent and his processing ability on the field. My biggest concern with him is his size because I don't know how much he's going to be able to handle if he doesn't add a little bit more weight, getting tackled by big guys over and over and over again, especially at the NFL level. But he's a guy who is one of my bets for potential Heisman candidate, potential number 1 overall. And he's a guy who I'm happy targeting where he's going in Devy startups right now.
Yeah, he's a good bet. And, I wanted to put him higher, Chris. I really did. I'm a big Nussmeier fan. I truly am. However, I had to take into account the boneheaded plays, that other, the bad part of his Tony Romo comp. When there was pressure in his face, he would often, I don't want to say he was exposed, but he just made terrible decisions, which are, reminiscent of a first-year starter in the SEC. They kind of figured him out. They had some offensive line injuries as well that probably contributed to that. Anytime you lose a starting center, starting guard, and you get that pressure up the middle, as a quarterback, it's never good, especially when you're only 6'2". So you mentioned the size too. That's also a reason why I comp him to Tony Romo. They're both 6'2", kind of similar frame as well. So he's a guy that definitely could vault himself up. Looking at recent history with these LSU quarterbacks, you look at Joe Burrow, had an okay first year starting, second season, one of the best ever, Heisman, right? Jaden Daniels, first year starting, it was pretty good. It was decent, but he was looked at maybe like a day two guy. Second year starting in that LSU system, one of the greatest seasons of all time, Heisman. Now, I don't know
Hopefully
if
the
he's going
same
to have
thing
that
carries
level
over.
of a jump. Yeah, and hopefully that's a bet that I'm willing to make just on recent history. And he seems like a guy that's got it. I know LSU is still using that virtual reality programming that Jaden Daniels made famous in the article that he talked about. So they're still using that as a
Really
program.
cool stuff,
So hopefully, so
Future's
hopefully,
now, man.
future's now. Yeah, let's have our quarterbacks use some virtual reality to speed up the processing ability. It's awesome. So I am excited to see if he can make that vaunted year 2 leap in this LSU system.
I love it, man. Perfect summary, and that's the reason why he ended up on my purple tier, as we'll see as we move on here in a little bit. Moving over to me, I have Nico here. I am a leaving, as he has gone over to UCLA from Tennessee, and I think a lot of people listening have heard all the off the field stuff, and it is kind of funny that he thought he would get more money and then actually ended up making less, I think, at UCLA than he would have got at Tennessee, and seemed like nobody really wanted him. I'm still a bit of a believer, though, and I think you can get him, especially if somebody drafted him a couple years ago on their Devy, and you can get him a little bit cheaper than you might expect. And he's going, third round, fourth round in Devy startups as well. I think that he's got a chance to silence the haters. And I've said it before, I don't necessarily love the guy's personality, so I don't want to, hitch my wagon to him and his family. It seems like they're the next, big baller brand of the NFL or something. But I still think that there's some traits there that are going to make him a guy to potentially, as I said, shut up the haters and make his way to the NFL. He's a nice big body. His first start was in the Citrus Bowl after Joe Milton declared for the NFL and didn't start. I thought he did really well there, and he showed us a lot of promise last year as well. But, the ability to have that big body and that arm talent to just kind of get the ball anywhere on the field and also be able to move a little bit. I've seen him compared to Josh Allen. I like him a lot as a Big Ben comp. I don't think he's going to be doing a ton of rushing, especially with that bigger frame, but I think he's going to be able to have the ability to scramble around a lot behind his offensive line and buy some time and look for the open receivers. And it's just exciting now to see with a fresh start what he might be able to do down there.
Yeah, fresh starts are always nice, and hopefully the young man. What my hope is that it's just he's had some bad people giving him advice, maybe his father or something. As our friend Spencer from Devy Planet pointed out when we were on their show, is we haven't actually heard anything from Nico's mouth, right? Everything that we've heard has been third party, his father, somebody else always mentioning. We haven't actually heard anything from him. So hopefully this gives him a chance to just put it all behind him. He's still going to be playing in the Big Ten, so decent competition there for UCLA. He has a chance, right, to up his stock, but for me personally, he's somebody that I'm out on, right? Like I've seen enough that I'm not confident in his ability to translate to the NFL. Now, he is a very tall guy, right? He's very tall, but he has a thin frame. That's why I kind of struggle with the Josh Allen or Big Ben comps, because he doesn't have the same wide base. He's not as heavy as them. He's tall and honestly kind of lanky. I do have some concerns about that frame at the next level if he were to make it. I think he has some mechanical issues that truly affect his accuracy. As any Tennessee fan will tell you, there was wide open receivers down the field that he could have hit easily, and the ball sailed. It went high in a clean pocket with no pressure in his face. The ball was sailing high, which always points to mechanic issues. If the ball was sailing high means his footwork wasn't very good in the pocket, which at this rate, it's something that he should have had fixed. Now, you add that on to the allegations that he was asking for more money during the college football playoffs and threatening to sit out.
Like I said, he's probably not the greatest guy, but he's a guy who I feel like we should highlight here specifically because I think everybody else is also dropping him down the rankings. And I feel like there's still potential for him. I wouldn't be shocked to see him start climbing up and up and up and having NFL eyes scouting him. I don't think he's got any opportunity to end up being a first round pick, but I think, with a good season, he's going to get a chance to potentially make it onto an NFL team and potentially become a starter at the NFL, which is ultimately what we're looking for out of our Devy quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We'll jump over to you. You have Sam Leavitt on your blue tier rankings, and he's a guy who I also was really thinking about throwing on my list, and he didn't quite make the cut. I don't want to spend too much time talking about him because he's your guy. So I will just say I really like going on NFLDraftBuzz.com. They always have nice write-ups, and basically everything they said is what I would say. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Man, I could talk about Sam a lot. As you know, I'm a big Jordan Tyson guy.
Absolutely,
the connection that these two had down the stretch were they were the best quarterback wide receiver combo in all of college football, straight up. Especially that 6-game stretch that we highlighted on the episode 1 where we talked about wide receivers. Now for Sam Leavitt, he's a guy who went from an afterthought to an architect, right? He's a kid most folks didn't even have on their radar, and he ended the season running an offense that looked like it was built around him from day one. And honestly, Chris, man, it's wild to think how quickly he took control of that offense. You could feel it. It was like he just had the keys. Coming from Michigan State, redshirt freshman, he had to come and battle for the job. Kenny Dillingham, the head coach for Arizona State, talked about it. Like, this kid just came in and he had to work his behind off, and really earned everything. Nothing was given to him. So I really like that. And going to his film, what popped on his film for me was his anticipation and his ball placement. He's not out there waiting for guys to get open. He's throwing to windows, not into them. And that's rare for a freshman or an inexperienced passer. I loved this stat using our new PFF subscription. He led all Power 5 freshmen with a 58.6 yards after catch rate, which that right there tells you everything that you need to know about how clean and catchable his throws are. He's a rhythm passer, and he's going to get the ball out very quickly and decisively and with purpose. And man, the thing that I could just talk about for days with Sam Leavitt is his poise. He plays with the calmness of like a fifth-year senior out there. According to PFF, he had just 5 turnover-worthy plays on over 400 attempts. That's insane.
Yeah, that's great. Surgical. And all of the advanced analytics, especially on PFF, have indicated that he is a very talented and intelligent quarterback. So the more I was reading into him, the more I was like, man, I wish I had at least just one share so I could join in on the fun. I'm going to have to do that next startup. So I'm going to beat you to him next time we do one.
Yeah, as you see, I have a few shares. So I'll make a deal with you, man. I'm taking them all.
We'll figure it out.
I got plenty. We'll make a deal. We'll make a deal. But for me, it wasn't just the mechanics and safe throws. Sam Leavitt can create. He's a legitimate athlete. His pocket presence is polished. And when the pocket broke down is when he was at his best. He has a knack for turning those kind of chaotic plays into chunk plays. He actually even averaged 7.8 yards per attempt under pressure, which ranked top 12 nationally. So, I mean, he can escape the pocket and make something happen. He's not just running around. I think he has – I believe he played basketball at Michigan State. I actually have to go back and look at that. But he looks like it with his movement in the pocket. He just looks like he has that basketball-style spatial awareness. Obviously, he's not like a twitchy Lamar, Jalen Milroe type, but he is smart with his rushing lanes. PFF graded him at 76.4 rushing grade when breaking the pocket. And it shows that he knows how to pick his spots, right? So if they're going to play man defense and have their backs turned to him, he's going to make them pay if he has a lane in the pocket, and he's going to pick up some good yards. So over the moon for a man. I think he could do it all. Obviously, the big knock on him is his frame. I think he's listed right at 200 pounds. So one of those scrawny small boys. He's got to hit the weight room. Get some.
Yeah, a lot of shades of Nussmeier in that sense. Both very talented passers with maybe a little bit of size concerns there. But yeah, I'm really excited, and you summed him up really well. I mean, not making that many turnover where he plays is fantastic.
It's huge.
My blue tier has a little bit of a theme, and that's that it's people that I don't necessarily love off the field, but I'm excited about on the field because Dylan Raiola. I'm not going to knock him too much because he's a young guy, but all that pretending you're Patrick Mahomes stuff is pretty creepy, man. Like. Very cringeworthy. I don't love it. But as I dug into him, you look at his stats from last year and they're not going to pop out at you. Everybody's fading him, I think, because of the overall stat line. And if you just given it a surface level glance at his stat line, it doesn't really show the whole story. He started hot last year. He had 1,100 yards and over 70% completion through the first 5 games. And then he kind of struggled a little bit in the middle of the season as competition got a little bit better. But when Dana Holgorsen took over in November as offensive coordinator, he started to pick back up again and kind of finished the year strong. Only 8 quarterbacks since 2000 have thrown 400 times and had a 65% completion percentage during their freshman year. He was the only true freshman of those 8 to do that. So I'm excited with Dana Holgerson to see how he's going to continue to grow, because it looked like he was showing some flashes of that at the end of the year. They also did a lot to help him out by taking 2 new offensive linemen from the transfer portal, and basically his entire receiver room is new players out there in Nebraska from the transfer portal, including Dane Key, who I know a lot of people are pretty high on, coming from Kentucky, I believe. So he's going to have some weapons and some support from the offensive line to grow a little bit more. And I think not being a true freshman, having a full year with Dana as the OC is going to give him a lot of opportunity to grow moving forward. And, he was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school as well. So I'm very excited to see what he can do in Nebraska this season.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the man. I hope that he just learns to become his own person, because there's talent all over. I think his play style, he really tries to be like Pat Mahomes, which, like you said, is just weird.
I saw a lot of things saying that Pat Mahomes was his mentor. I don't know if that's true or not, or if he just emulates Patrick Mahomes.
I think
he gives me Jason Tatum vibes, man. He's like the Jason Tatum of the NCAA. I don't love that. But
yeah, that's true.
I do like.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say as far as his play, man. I think you hit it right on the head. Like, he's obviously talented. I don't know what people were expecting for his first starting year as a true freshman there in Nebraska. They didn't really have the best weapons there, obviously. So this is going to be a pretty big year for Nebraska. Let's see if they can take that next step. But we are already kind of running low on time. So we
should pick it up. Absolutely. We'll go to our purple tier, which is where, as I alluded to before, I have Garrett Nussmeier. So we won't dig into him too much more. You have Lenora Sellers and Cade Klubnik. I have DJ Lagway and Drew Allar accompanying Nussmeier on my tiers. Drew Allar, obviously, I'm a Penn State guy. Very excited about him. He is my quarterback 3 on my rankings. I know you don't want to talk too much about him today because you wanted to let me kind of ride it out as the Penn State guy. And I will say that I try very hard to not let my Penn State bias show through on all of these things. Like last week we talked about Nick Singleton. But I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about Nick Singleton beyond the helmet he's wearing. And I think the same thing's here with Drew Allar. I might be a little bit biased, but as I try to evaluate him appropriately, he's a top 3 guy for me. The more I watch him, the more he rises up my board. He's a big, tall body with a cannon for an arm, man. And any Penn State fan who watches him is going to say, why are they not using him better? So I'm really hoping. Remember the Let Russ Cook campaign from his Seattle days? That's what I'm saying. We got to let Drew cook here, man. He came back for one more year, along with both running backs, to try to win them a national title. And I hope James Franklin just gives him the keys and lets him go, because he wants to, A, win a title, and B, make himself the best possible quarterback to succeed at the NFL level. And it's basically a foregone conclusion that he will make it to the NFL at some point. It's just how high is he going to get drafted and where's he going to go? He's got a little bit of decent rushing upside. I don't expect a ton of that out of him necessarily, but he is a bit of a threat whenever he takes off and runs. What stands out the most to me is his ball security. He famously started his career with 311 pass attempts before he threw his first interception. I have seen him compared before to, again, Josh Allen and Big Ben. I think of him more as like a Justin Herbert type, where he is a bit of a rushing threat when the opportunity presents itself, but you really want him to be throwing the rock more than running the rock. Not a ton of great runs on his profile, but I think he could have that kind of Justin Herbert type ceiling in his future. So I am definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do for my boys this year.
Yeah, I mean, I get the appeal. He's the former 5-star. He's got upper tier arm strength. He can drive the ball when he needs to. The raw tools are there. But here's my issue, Chris. He's never really taken command of the Penn State offense. And I keep waiting for the coaching staff to take the training wheels off. Let Drew operate like franchise quarterback, but it's never happened. And that makes me wonder, are they protecting him, right? Or are they hiding something? Because look at the usage. They got heavy reliance on Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, which, of course, those are great running backs. But it's ultra-conservative passing concepts, 0 consistent vertical threat outside. And I get that the wide receiver room hasn't been elite in its time there. But at some point, you as the quarterback have to elevate the offense. That's what all the top quarterbacks do. It's the standard that you are held to when you play the quarterback position and you are one of those high 5-star recruits. So looking at him, when the lights came on in big games, he plays small. And for me, that's a red flag. I'd rather bet on a guy like Sam Leavitt, who he's already shown that he can shift the identity of an offense. He came in as a transfer, took over that team, and made it his. Drew Allar, I'm not convinced he isn't just another big arm system.
Hey, well, he's going to shut you up in November. I mean, in January when he's got that national title in his hands and he's the MVP of the championship game. I love
him when I trigger you. Yeah,
they haven't had any wide receivers, really to throw to lately, which has been not great for them, which I think has kind of molded a little bit of their offensive game plan. Obviously, they recruit the heck out of running backs and tight ends, and that's what they've had a lot of lately. And there hasn't really been anybody for him to throw to as a wide receiver, so that might have had something to do with it. And I have talked about Trevor Pena before being a transfer. I think he's going to be a nice, reliable, open guy for Allar to throw to. So we'll see how the offense takes shape here this year. Give me some conversation on Cade Klubnik. He's the guy who I left off my list, and I don't know what to do with him on my rankings because some days I'm like, I'm going to put him top 5. Other days I'm like, I don't even want to talk about him on my top 10. So let's see where you land on this.
Man, Cade Klubnik seems like he's one of those guys that just his artificial value has already been predetermined by the community, and they just cannot shake the bias when it comes to Cade Klubnik. Because Cade Klubnik didn't just rebound in 2024, he matured. He had the down, like a really bad sophomore year. I am not going to deny that. And it had many wondering if the 5-star shine had dulled, right? If he was going to fade out. But Klubnik last year, in his third year in the Garrett Riley system, he came back in full command. He looked to me like a quarterback who earned the right to lead. He threw for over 3,600 yards, 36 touchdowns, I believe only 6 interceptions. And he, like I said, he finally took full command of the Garrett Riley offense. He's not like the sexiest type of prospect because he doesn't have the big bazooka arm. He's not going to be throwing it deep down the field like a Drew Allar. But Klubnik, he's a midfield surgeon. That's where he's going to earn his money at the next level. His rhythm, timing, and placement are surgical. On the 10 to 19-yard throws, he earned a 91.5 PFF grade. And the film matches it. Like I said, super accurate. He's hitting the seam shots, deep digs, these layered crossing throws, all thrown on time and all thrown in stride. So he doesn't just throw to open receivers. He throws them open, which is a great trait that I look for to be able to translate to the next level. He doesn't often attack deep, like I said, but when he does, it's pretty clean. He posted a 93.5 grade per PFF and a 31.4% big-time throw rate on deep balls. So proof that he can rip it when he gets the green light. And don't sleep on the legs. I shared a clip in our Discord chat the other day of him running for like the 70 yards scored. Overall in the year, he ran for over 460 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. So he's not Lenora Sellers, who we'll talk about later, but he's got decent athleticism to pick up yards. He's still got things to clean up, of course. Slight frame, another guy that's only like 210 pounds. So you have those concerns about him, but
yeah, I think the thing that always hesitates me is I like to gauge the fans, and a lot of the Clemson fans who I have talked to are not as high on him as the rest of the community seems to be. So I don't know what that tells you, but it tells me maybe pause the brakes a little bit there. I mean, he's a guy who I do have a share or two of on Devy and is absolutely the range of outcomes is huge for him. He could potentially be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, or he could have a bad season and we'll never talk about him again. So he's one of those kind of high ceiling, low floor type players.
I get that. I do. I just think the way he wins, his consistency, I think head coaches and scouts are going to fall in love with him because I think as a play caller, you're going to know that he's going to run the offense effectively. He's not going to do any boneheaded stuff. He's going to read the field. He can process post snap. I said before in our Discord, man, and I'll keep parodying it. He was tailor made to run the Sean McVay offense. You get him some nice, clean play action, some RPOs in that type of offense under center with a good run game behind him. I think he could. That
would be fun, especially if Stafford only has a year or 2 left in him, and he can maybe sit behind him for a year and learn from one of the greatest to ever do it.
That is the vision, and now you see it.
Let's make it a reality. Lenora Sellers is the other guy on your purple tier, and I love Lenora Sellers. He is on my black tier to peek ahead a little bit. I mean, anytime you have a 6'3", 240-pound guy who can just launch the pigskin and he can run all over the field, it's something to be excited about. What I really like about him, though, and I've talked about it before, is his off-the-field intangibles. He seems like a really natural leader. he's discussed mid-season in press conferences how he felt like the game started to slow down as the season progressed. It seems like he's trying really hard to make himself the best possible quarterback that he can, and he's even taken or not taken offers for way more money to go to a different school so he can stay at South Carolina. Why do you like him here on the purple tier?
I mean, he's a Konami code quarterback. He's got the big frame, 240 pounds, like you mentioned, but he runs with some athletic juice, right? He's not like just a plotter, like a Josh Allen, Cam Newton type. He's got some elusiveness to him, which is really fun to see at that size. Big time arm. I mean, he definitely needs to make some refinements in his passing game, but overall, as a passer, he's severely underrated. I saw him hitting guys in stride deep down the field, and wide receivers were just letting him down. Not a perfect prospect, which is why I didn't have him in the black belt. I think he was a 19-year-old first-year starter in the SEC. He has a lot of things on his profile that are keeping him down for me right now. 11 fumbles last season, and he could have had more. His teammates bailed him out on quite a few. So the way he kind of holds the ball in the pocket, he holds the ball very long. He had, according to PFF, a 3.3 time to throw rate, which is just way, way too long. You're holding the ball now. Of course, at this level, he's a lot more athletic than people. So like that you see on his tape where he's, getting people off of him, rolling around and ripping it for 60 yards down the field. Now, that's the Lenora Sellers effect, and that's what makes him so tantalizing. And that's what's going to have scouts salivating. And he's a guy I'm not convinced that he goes to that he declares in 2026. I know a lot of people put him higher because of his proximity to the NFL draft, and I'm not entirely convinced that he will declare. I think more than likely he will, especially if he has the season that we project. But I mean, he already turned down $8 million, like you said, to go to another program. I don't think he's in a hurry to go make the money. I think he really is in love with the program. I think that he wants to have them continue to build around him and develop his game. And that's, I'm going to keep saying this. This is a theme now that we're going to be seeing with these quarterbacks who could continue to make money with NIL and continue to develop. Because one thing that we know about the NFL is it's not for long, right? That's what it stands for. They're not going to develop you at that level. As a professional, in any field, as a professional, you are expected to be a master of your craft and be able to go out there and perform your job duties. It is not their job to develop you. At the NFL level, the coach's job is to put the game plan out there, teach you the concepts, and have you execute it effectively because you're a professional now. So anybody expecting that these guys go to teams and they're just getting developed, it does not work that way at the pro level. So take your time in college, learn all that you can, and really hone your craft, like I said, and elevate your draft stock. But if he has a big year,
if the lights are shining and he's getting buzz about being an early draft pick, you never know what'll happen. But he does seem like he's a really intelligent kid, a good leader, and he's doing the best possible things for himself to make him the best quarterback he can be. And I've seen him often compared to Anthony Richardson, who's a guy I famously faded coming out of college, mostly because of the accuracy, and that is not at all a problem that Sellers has. Completed 65.6% of his passes last year. Again, the fumbling is the biggest concern, I think, for both of us overall. So he needs to learn a little bit to be more of a ball security thing, kind of the polar opposite of Drew Allar there. But I'm excited about him. I think that, anytime you can have a guy, again, with that big frame, and he's only going to be 20 this year. So even if he declares, he's going to be 21 when he's going in the NFL. Exciting stuff. But yeah, it might be best for him, depending on how the season goes, to wait another year. But then he's going to be a part of that big 2027 class. So you never know what kind of competition he's trying to dodge.
And that could definitely play a factor. I mean, he's going to have his agents in his ear, his team who's representing him. They're going to be telling him, this is what NFL teams are saying, where they project you to go. You're looking at being a first round, like definitely top 5 locked in pick here this year. Whereas if he does wait, he's likely competing with Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, all these high profile names that we all know and love. So I don't know, man. We'll see. We just need college football to get here.
I know. I can't wait.
Some real football plays.
Speaking of DJ Lagway, he is on my purple tier. I like him a lot. Him being a little bit further away is what keeps him from my black belt tier. I know that he's one of those guys that's one of the biggest buzzes and risers, I think, in this offseason for Devy. And there's a lot of reason to be excited for him. He's got the 3rd highest PFF deep passing rating last year. So he can absolutely launch that thing. We were talking about deep bombs with Sellers. This guy's even better. And tons of rushing upside too. Definitely smaller than Sellers, but he's very tall. He's got a lot of room to add some extra pounds to his frame. And I'm totally excited to keep this guy in my top 4, even though he's a little bit further away from the NFL.
Yeah, and I get that. I love it. I think DJ Lagway has a chance to be Devy quarterback 1 overall when it's all said and done. I really do. You just talk about a guy that's got tools and the mental makeup to just succeed. The way he's got that coiled up power in his lower body. It's like, it's reminiscent of a shortstop turning 2, right? Like hitting that double play. And it translates into that explosive velocity from all angles. The ball doesn't just come out fast. It kind of comes out with that, give me a scouting superlative, that explosive velocity and violent snap. Like it's been fired from a slingshot or something. Like it just pops. His arm strength, effortless torque. One of my favorite plays that he made on tape last year was against LSU, where right off the rip in shotgun formation, instant pressure from the blind side. The left tackle just got demolished on this play, instantly has pressure in his face. He steps up in the pocket off base and throws this just rocket over the field for a touchdown to the wide receiver. It's just a beautiful, beautiful play. And it really just perfectly encapsulates everything that DJ Lagway is. That as a true freshman playing in the SEC, coming in for an injured Mertz and just really taking over that team and making it his. I believe he went undefeated as a starter. And he was pretty banged up with the shoulder injury, snagging lower body stuff. And he was still grinding away and just leading the team to victory, which, I mean, you talk about the intangibles. He displayed it all season. So that to me is why I have him ranked so highly.
Yeah, and Graham Mertz was mentioned, so I got to give a shout out to my boy Fish, who's the world's biggest Graham Mertz fan. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is a guy who you can project absolutely the ceiling of number 1 Devy quarterback. He's got a long lead time ahead of him, but that also means he's got a lot of time to improve on all of the things he did last year. The biggest thing for me was a little bit of accuracy issues. It seemed like he wasn't the most accurate at times. There's times he could really put the ball where he wanted it, and then there's times where you're like, where are you throwing with that thing, man? So I'm looking forward to seeing how he can grow a little bit down there in Florida.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to make excuses for him, but I do think that the lower body injury definitely played a factor in the accuracy late into the year. Because surely he was ripping that thing. But yeah, definitely some red flags that you should pay attention to for sure.
And without further ado, our black belt tier, which has you having DJ Lagway as your number 1 quarterback.
Yes, sir.
Over Arch Manning, who is on both of our tiers, as was probably guessed by everybody listening. We talked about LaNorris being on my black belt tier, and we have now talked about DJ Lagway being on your black belt tier. And for me, Arch Manning, of course, is the number 1 overall quarterback, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. That seems to be his consistent value. For me, just don't overthink it, man. This guy was created by God to be an NFL quarterback. Anytime you're growing up with a grandfather who was in the NFL, an uncle who was maybe the greatest ever outside of Tom Brady, another uncle who won 2 Super Bowls against the very same Tom Brady, learning a lot from those guys. It just seems like he's handled the poise perfectly. He's done what's needed to do to wait until Texas was willing to give him the keys to the car. And now he is the man who's going to be leading us on August 30th into the NCAA season against Ohio State. So I'm really excited about him. He even has some wheels too. He's not a pure pocket passer like his uncles were. So he's molded, like I said, by God to be the perfect NFL quarterback in today's day and age.
Yes, he's the chosen one, right? He is the next one up. And Arch Manning's name enters the room before he does. That's just reality. He's been talked about like a future first rounder since he was 16, right? And every step that this kid takes is under a microscope. But I think, honestly, so far, I think he's handled it pretty well. I think he's handled it exactly how you want a young quarterback to handle it, with the composure, patience, and purpose. And in this era where most blue chip 5-star quarterbacks jump ship the second they're not starting, Arch stayed, right? And he sat behind Quinn Ewers. He didn't chase a quick opportunity somewhere else. And he took the time to learn Steve Sarkisian's system. And that choice alone, to me, says a lot about his mental makeup and who he is, not just about his confidence, of course, but about his willingness to develop the right way not just the fast way. And it's something that his camp has talked about a lot. It's why, people trying to put out this 2026 mock drafts right now are including Arch Manning. And it's like, no, guys, his grandfather has literally said that he wants Arch to get that, not just him, like as a team, collectively, as a family, they have said they want Arch to get 30 collegiate starts, because historically looking back, if you get that amount of starts, you're prepared to have success at the NFL. It's like that in any other profession, right? You wouldn't want your doctors just coming in without any experience coming in and operating on you, right? That's just how it works in life. And so naturally,
great analogy,
the more experience you get, the better that you are going to be. And I think the NFL has recently showed that these quarterbacks who have a lot of starts in college are able to come in and be effective and have success early on in their careers. And it really gives you a leg up. So Arch Manning, to me, has done it all the right way. That's why I'm super excited about him. I know that during his time there, I believe after his freshman season, Tennessee was coming in pretty hard. And I know you got to imagine there was a lot of programs willing to throw some money.
I'm sure. I mean, that's going to fill the stands more than just college football itself does. So, he's a guy I'm sure has definitely had some offers and has tolerated Quinn Ewers throughout the whole thing, much to the chagrin, I think, of Texas fans. The big thing, we just need to see more of him, right? Like you said, yes. His uncle or his grandfather wants him to get a ton more starts before he makes the NFL. And I'm starting to buy into that idea that he might not come out this year. He might just stick around, see what they can do at Texas, see if he can take them on a title run, make them a little bit further in the playoffs than they got last year. He was really, really good in his limited times as a spot starter for Quinn Ewers at Texas already. Against Mississippi State, he threw an 83.9% completion rate for 325 yards and 3 total touchdowns. That's pretty good, man. I want to see a whole season of that.
Right, exactly. And just standing within the pocket, his mechanics are clean, his delivery is smooth. Like, he looks like a Manning level thrower, right? Like, he looks like the next great Manning in terms of a pocket passer. But then you add in that Konami code element, the ability to rush. Like, he's out there stunting like his granddaddy. There ain't been a Manning running around like that since his grandfather.
Yeah, so, it seems like he knows what's going on all around him when you're watching him on the field. Like, he's got the processing speed and the intelligence, of course, that has been passed down through his blood to become a good, decisive passer and know exactly what's going on in front of him. So I'm looking forward to him. It's going to be an exciting year for Texas fans. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I mean, you could talk about him all day, and the upside is real. Like, he's a very hyped up prospect, obviously. And
yeah, he's like the Bryce Harper of the NCAA.
Yeah, that's honestly a great way to put it. Like, we've been waiting on this guy for a while now, and he's so good that Coach Sarkisian couldn't keep him off the field. You saw him come in on certain packages, kind of like reminiscent of a freshman Tebow coming in on those packages, right? The short yardage situations, just run it and get the first down. I believe they had him run it in the playoffs too on a fourth down and convert that way. So super exciting about him, like super excited about him. They just couldn't, they had to get him on the field somehow. And now it's his time. Like, he waited, he put in the work. Now we get to see how he's developed. And I'm just super excited about that. Limited.
Now it's our time to watch every Texas game this year.
Week 1, baby. Week 1, we'll be there.
Can't wait.
Well, we won't be there, but we'll be watching. We'll be there in spirit.
One of these days. When we get really famous, we'll start flying to these things and doing some in-person scouting. Well, we did go a little bit over today, but that's because I pulled a fast one on you with Dante Moore, and he still got that. I should have done another slide without the big red X over him because he doesn't need to go out that way, but I don't have another slide, so it's okay.
It's all good, man. Hey, it's always a good time when you're having fun, right? Might have gone over a little bit, but that's all right. Well, hopefully everybody enjoyed today's show, but that wraps up today's journey through the changing tide of the quarterback position. In Devy, these quarterbacks can rise fast, but the current shifts quickly, and those who can read the flow are the ones who stay ahead. That's why here in the dojo, we don't just chase hype, right? We scout traits, we track momentum, and we trust the process. So until next time, my friends, stay disciplined, stay intentional, and keep building your Devy empire. We will see you in the dojo.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to fantasysportsadvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to fantasysportsadvice.com.